Hi, my name is Brian, and today we're going to be talking to Guy Douglas, and he's been flying for a number of years, and I think he's retired now, but he's going to tell us about his flying experiences, starting when he first learned how to fly, and all about the piston aircraft that he flew, and bringing us right up through jets and things like that. So, Guy, just want to welcome you to the show today, and why don't you start by telling us how you got interested in flying and why you wanted to learn how to fly.
When I was a small boy, we would go to the airport between Uniontown, Pennsylvania and Cottlesville. And they had a grass strip there, and they called it Max Convict Inn. And there would be a couple Waco airplanes, which one was belonged to a neighbor that lived close by us. And knowing him, and we would sit there and watch the airplanes, and they would have a parachute jump every Sunday afternoon. And I got interested and still hang around airports.
So how old were you when you got your pilot's license?
I soloed when I was 17 in May of 1941.
Okay, from there now, with the war coming up shortly after that, were you drafted or did you enlist in the military?
I got drafted and took my training at Miami Beach, Florida, and lived in a hotel.
You did? You didn't get any barracks?
No.
Okay, now from there, did you train in for military planes right then and there, or did you learn about bombers or transports, or what did you learn about there?
I went to the Ford School at Willow Run, Michigan. And from there I went to Savannah, Georgia, and I was in base flight. Went from Savannah to Topeka, Kansas, and ended up the Air Corps service in Merced, California.
Now from there, what type of aircraft did you fly? Were you flying transports or bombers or
Well,
fighters?
all of our aircraft were transport airplanes. I was in Savannah, and then went to Topeka. And while I was at Merced, I went to Fairfield, Tucson. There was the C-54, the airlines know them as the DC-4. I went to that school, and when I came out of that school, I got discharged.
Oh, you did, huh? Okay. Now you continued flying once you were discharged from the military. That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you become a commercial pilot, or did you do civilian cargo? What did you do from there?
Well, my first job was with a construction company. They were building the big gas pipelines out of Louisiana to the East Coast. I was there with them for a year, and then I went with a major restaurant chain flying their corporate airplane.
Uh-huh.
And in 1955, I went with a supplemental carrier, which is known as the non-skid, and stayed with them until '64.
Now, when you were with that outfit there, what type of aircraft were you flying?
I flew C-46s and Lockheed Constellations.
Now, the Lockheed Constellation, that was kind of the queen of the skies, right? Right there, prior to jets, right?
Sure was. Our first Constellation was a Model 749, and then they came out with the Super Connie. The 749 had 2,500 horsepower Wrights on it. They finally boosted the horsepower up on the Super Connies with the same engine with power recovery turbines to 3,400. And It was, you really had to baby the engine. Lots of times you'd see 2 or 3 Connies at a New York airport every day come in with one feathered.
Now, were these Connies used transcontinental, or were they used between, say, New York or Washington and overseas, or were they used for both?
Well, we ran most of our flights were international, over the Atlantic or the Pacific.
Now, when you were doing those flights over the Atlantic, was there anything like a really big storm you encountered that you had to fly around, and what did you do? And did you fly nonstop, or did you have to stop somewhere, say like over Goose Bay, Labrador, or something?
Depending on the winds and the load, the 749 Connie carried about 5,600 gallons. And that engine the total consumption for the 4 engines would be approximately 400 gallons an hour. And as the aircraft lightened, you pulled back on the power, and so you would keep a constant airspeed through the flight.
And how fast did you fly if you were, say, headed from, say, New York or anywhere on the East Coast over to Europe? How fast could that aircraft fly?
Well, we babied the engines and about 250 to 60 knots. Add 15% of that, and that will give you miles per hour.
Okay. Now, how long was the flight time, though, if you're going, say, from Boston, say Boston and New York over to London?
Well, say New York to Frankfurt.
Okay.
Counting block time, that means when an airplane leaves the blocks till it returns to the blocks, a round trip would be about 31 hours.
Now, when you did that, when you took the Connie over there, would you just have like an 8-hour layover and fly directly home, or would you just, stay over there for a few days, lay over there, and then fly home?
Well, it just depends on when we only had one Connie on the run, we would wait for it to go back to New York and come back to Frankfurt, and we would bring it back. And the aircraft would average 10 or 11 round trips a month.
Okay. Now, how many trips a month would you personally fly if you were flying the Connie?
Well, it'd be 3 trips a month for 2 months, and it'd be 3.5 trips for the 3rd month.